So today I talk about the 2005 Royal Rumble, and I have to confess that, going back and watching this show again, gained a greater appreciation for the event because I look at it as one of those moments and one of those years where the WWE was trying to create a new generation of top guys to carry the company for the next decade. And you could see throughout this event, with what I call the Fortunate Four, that they were doing just that. Now, they did it better with some than they did with others, but hey, they had their Fortunate Four. That was Cena, Batista, Edge, and Orton. And they were starting to do some things with at least three of those guys to really cement their place as main event players for this company for years to come. And it helped gain me a greater appreciation for this event, like I said, and I actually really liked this show going back and watching it. It all started with the awesome opening match on this card, Edge defeating Shawn Michaels. And regardless of how he won, you were trying to sit there and establish him as kind of this ultimate opportunist personality. So him being a chicken shit heel, having to win via holding the ropes, that made perfect sense because that was the type of character you were trying to, really begin to set up and, cultivate. Is this guy that took an opportunity, seized it, and found a way to weasel out with the victory. But what a big moment here for Edge. They've been trying to push him as a babyface. It didn't really work, so they decided to do the right thing and, when in doubt, heel him out. And now you sit there at the beginning of the year at one of your big four pay-per-views. You have him wrestling, of all people, Shawn Michaels. And this is a Shawn Michaels that if you want to put somebody on the map and you want them to be able to get the absolute most out of themselves, you put them in the ring with a Shawn Michaels. And that's exactly what Shawn Michaels did with Edge here. This helped make Edge a star as a singles competitor, in my humble opinion. Again, the WWE did some good stuff with Edge. Not only did they have him open the card and win over Shawn Michaels and establish that he could have a main event type of match with a main event legit player in Shawn Michaels, he came back in the Rumble at the end of the night and entered number 7 and went over 40 minutes, lasted until the final 4. This is the type of stuff that WWE used to do back in the day to create new stars. I miss this type of stuff with the WWE. Guys had a progression, they had a build, they gave them these signature moments at these big pay-per-views, which they needed, and then they followed that up at WrestleMania with having Edge win the Money in the Bank briefcase. So they did a lot of good stuff with Edge, and then going into the summer of 2005, we don't need to talk about that so much, but it still helped make Edge a big-time single star. There's no question about it. Increased my appreciation for this opening match, how good it was. The next match, though, not one of my favorites, Undertaker and Heidenreich in a casket match. I really don't want to talk about that any more than I have to, but I will say this, is that while the casket match wasn't terrible, definitely wasn't one of my favorites. Definitely not one of Taker's best. I feel kind of bad for Undertaker that he had to have a feud with Heidenreich that ultimately led to a casket match at a Big Four pay-per-view between the two, but at least they had Taker win the damn casket match. That's about all I got to say about that. Middle of the card, you've got the triple threat for the WWE Championship, JBL, Big Show, and Kurt Angle. 3 established guys, 3 holdovers from the Attitude Era. 3 guys that could go in their own way. And this is here at a time where you're still trying to build JBL into a credible, big-time, legit heel world champion, serving as that long-term transitional place-holding heel champion. Because after Brock Lesnar left in 2004, it really left the WWE scrambling. And by putting the belt on JBL, it allowed them a long period of time. It bought them time to be able to build up a babyface here to eventually take that belt from JBL when he was ready, maybe let's say at WrestleMania 21, and that's exactly what happened. They found the right babyface. The right babyface faced JBL. He won it in the right way, and it was off to the races from there. It really was. Even JBL himself has always referred to him, even when I talked to him and I asked him about it, he called himself a long-term transitional champion. And that's exactly what he was. And he did a good job, and he was a good world champion. And he served a ultimate purpose for the company long term, a good company man here. So it was right for him to go over here because of what it meant come WrestleMania. His long-term title reign comes to an end against a young, hungry, aggressive Lion. Then we get to what is the epitome of, a company pushes a guy to the moon to the point of it being a force, and then they completely pull the rug out from under him and completely forget about that push and decide to bury him. Triple H versus Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship. Oh my God. So the same Randy Orton that they were so big on in 2003 and 2004, they were going to sit there and push this motherfucker to the moon and force him down your damn throat until apparently Triple H came back from, I think, filming the third Blade movie, and then that was going to be the end of all that bullshit. And it was going to go back to God. Praise God! And he is very praiseworthy and deserving here for this and how it went down because, wow. But on a positive standpoint, this was a really good match between these two. And to me, it did establish at a time where Orton needed to establish that he could carry and conduct himself as a main event player in a main event match for a main event belt at a Big Four show. And that's important. You need those moments. You need those things to be established if you're going to have a guy be a long-term star. Thankfully for Randy Orton, he was eventually able to clear himself of the Triple H problem. And he had maybe his whole push salvaged, his whole career saved, and maybe that's a bit harsh, but his whole main event career saved by being able to work with Undertaker most of the rest of 2005. What a fortunate spot for Randall Keith Orton to be in. He always has to be, I would assume, eternally grateful for what Undertaker did for him and how Undertaker really cemented him as a star and a big-time player down the road. There's no question about it. Now we get to the actual Royal Rumble match itself, and it's a match that I went back and watched, and I really enjoyed from beginning to end. One of my favorite actual Rumble matches. Now, how sad, tragic, and ironic it is that the first two individuals here are Guerrero and Benoit. But they both went a long way. And this was still, obviously, when they were doing Raw and SmackDown as completely separate brands where they actually competed against each other at these bigger shows. They had their own pay-per-views. They tried to establish brand identity with both shows. And it really comes across well here. Now, you had some other things. Again, like I mentioned, you had Edge after beating Shawn Michaels earlier in the night. He comes back in this Rumble, enters number 7, and goes 40 minutes. This is the type of stuff that makes a guy a star, especially when you follow up on it appropriately, which the WWE did later on at WrestleMania by having Edge win that first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. This is how you create a star. This is what this company used to do a lot of, and do it very well. And then something happened in recent years where if somebody does become a big star, it almost comes by accident and in spite of what the WWE does. See CM Punk, see Daniel Bryan, just as two of the notable examples. Those guys became stars in spite of what the WWE tried to do, in spite of the bullshit that the WWE tried to pull. Again, illustrating their disconnect with today's audience and disconnect with what's really going on with their talents and who should be pushed to the top and who shouldn't be. But, how much better off would a CM Punk or a Daniel Bryan be in the WWE of 2014, no matter how good you think they're doing right now, and they're doing really well, if they got this type of treatment that an Edge got, or they got this type of treatment that a Batista got, or John Cena got, as they were being built up into main event players. Oh, my God. Or an Edge. Ooh, oh, my God. But again, you had Jericho go almost a half hour here. And, this is one of my favorite Rumbles because I go back and I always appreciate those Rumbles that, you could see big-time moments. And maybe at the time we didn't have a full appreciation for how big of a moment it is to see Batista and John Cena be the last two, but it was a huge moment, especially when you look back at where we are 9 years later. These ended up being the two guys that for the next 5 years after this really carried this company as the top two guys. They really did. Cena on one brand, Batista on the other. They were the stars. And here is this moment. It's like a Rock Austin very light. But it was significant. Batista and Cena, these two young lions. You've already had Edge go 40 minutes. He made it to the Final Four after beating Shawn Michaels earlier in the night. So there was some good stuff happening here. Of course, one of my favorite memories for this Rumble or any Rumble is after the first bullshit finish where they basically both land outside at the same time. Vince comes storming down the ring saying, "I can't have that. We're not going to do fucking 1994 again. I'm going to get in the ring and snap, crackle, pop both of my quads." The enduring image of this pay-per-view and this Rumble match, has to be Vince McMahon sitting on his ass after tearing both of his quads, screaming at the ref to restart the match. Kevin Nash couldn't even do that. Triple H can only tear one of them. He might be God, but he's not Vincent K. McMahon. Vince said, I'm going to do it bigger than better than everybody else, and I'm going to pop and tear both of those sons of bitches. And that's exactly what he did. Of course, Batista, after the restart, goes on to eliminate John Cena from the Royal Rumble, and at that time, it was the right decision, and it started off the breaking up for sure of Evolution, you know, as he goes at it with Triple H into WrestleMania and beyond, and Triple H really, I feel like, established Batista as a big-time star and put him on the map and put him over at 3 straight pay-per-views. Wow. But a really good show. A lot of good stuff here. And a lot of good stuff that was building and establishing guys for the future. Like even in this case in 2005, you had Rey Mysterio go 38 minutes. For the next year, he could come back and actually win the damn thing. You had Edge beat Shawn Michaels, then go 40 minutes. You know, Guerrero and Benoit go a long time. You had Cena and Batista in the final two. A lot of good things happen on the show. And another thing that I forgot to really talk about with this Rumble is you got that split off and you really got that feud going between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels here, where Shawn Michaels eliminates Angle, then Angle comes back in and eliminates Shawn Michaels. And that was a good feud, and that led to a really good match at WrestleMania 21. One of those mid-card matches for no belts. It's just a feud. It's personal business. They have a real reason to fight. They have a real reason to hate each other. Those are the type of matches that when a WrestleMania has them, the show tends to be a whole lot better off because of it. So like I said, lots of good stuff here happened at the 2005 Royal Rumble. In terms of quality of show, it's probably one of my 5 or 6 favorite Rumble pay-per-views of all time, maybe even a little bit higher than that.